Hello, my name is Dr. Thomas Maples, and today I want to talk about fostering childhood dreams. Ever since I was little, I remember that I would often go into my internal world, even when I was in school, and I would be thinking literally about the future to come, and I would allow my imagination to go wild about my dreams, what my aspirations were, who I wanted to be when I grew up, and yes, this even would affect my schoolwork for the negative, and I'd often be called out by teachers as being ADHD, well, at least attention deficit because I wasn't paying attention. But what happens with children is they have a really innate capacity to dream. And this, as parents, is something that we really need to help them foster forward. A lot of times, social institutions such as workplaces, they don't really necessarily encourage dreaming to take place solely because they have a job to do, which is to impart information if it's a school, or to complete a job if it's your place of employment. And so part of what schools are training children for is really one of those things that will help them join the workplace, but it's also secondarily important that they begin to formulate their own dreams forward, not just go through the motions of life. And that's really one of the reasons why I think there's a disconnect today, especially as it relates to children who may have mental health problems or whatnot. In a recent article by Marilyn Wedge entitled Why French Kids Don't Have ADHD, it was written for Psychology Today. She basically shed light on why is it that nearly 9% of children in America are diagnosed with ADHD, where only 0.5% of French children have this diagnosis. There's a big disconnect within those statistics itself, which leads me to believe that there's a disconnect within our social institutions as it relates to passing on generational values as we had in the past. And so part of what my work as a psychotherapist is really to help children begin to bridge the gap between what's the expectations of their school setting or what the expectation of their parents are versus what is their own expectations. What do they want to do when they grow up? Well, there's a lot of social and cultural and emotional variations that occur with children that are seen in therapy. A lot of times, they do have dreams that aren't being allowed to express. And so what is it that we could do as parents to really begin to help them to foster this journey forward? In 1963, the psychoanalyst Erik Erikson wrote a very interesting book, and it's really a foundational book for the practice of child psychology, called Childhood and Society. Erikson believed in psychosocial development, that we'd initially have to develop trust within our environment. And that usually happens by first getting to know our parents and then getting to rely on them. So then we could begin to interact with the environment afterwards as a means to form social autonomy. If we did not form an initial bond of trust, then the mistrust would actually not only be environmental, it could also go within. And so what happens here is if a child initially has mistrust and then they move towards not being able to develop some aspect of social autonomy, then really what ends up occurring is they become reliant on the they begin to become reliant on mistrusting their environment, and this in turn causes some aspects of inferiority to take place, which in turn affects their capacity to learn the social industry caused that the school and the education system is trying to teach. And so, what is it that we could do to help children foster their dreams forward? How can we help them to begin to trust not only their family environment, but also the social industries that we expect, what the social expectations that occur within the school setting? It may be confusing to keep up with all your children's dreams, but part of the initial response is really to begin working with them on their dreams. They they deserve to be able to dream life forward. One of the things I do all the time with my children, they're 9 and 5, is I ask them what their dreams were at night, not as a means to try and psychoanalyze them or to see if they're having healthy dreams or unhealthy dreams, but more along the lines to open them up and expose them to the idea that dreams are actually real phenomenon that help us to become who we are as people. And so part of helping your children begin to differentiate these is by working with nighttime dreams, they become exposed to the same phenomenon that underlies aspirations or goal setting behaviors. The second part is really to help them begin to work on taking a look at what is their values. And so as they work with their dreams, you begin to have a nuance to see what are the social values that children have. What is it that's driving them forward? They may tell you that they dream of becoming a veterinarian or a basketball star or a police officer or a fireman. And really, it's that process that allows you to begin to work with them to instill your family values, especially as it relates to work ethics and things to that nature. What does it take to get there? And so this is part of something that you could really work with them experientially to help them understand the steps that are needed to move from point A to point B. The other part is I really encourage people not to create a plan B scenario. Children's dreams are really thwarted at times, especially as it relates to adults or teachers saying, well, that's too hard to get, or you better have a plan B, or what's your backup plan? Do you want to go? Do you want to go to college? You better have a backup plan if that dream doesn't come true. A lot of this comes from our own anxieties, and it's not necessarily our children's anxieties. And what happens within that is we really want to encourage their dreams to move forward. We want them to work towards their dream. The first rule with encouraging your children's dream is to teach them to work hard towards it. The second is to not really have them make an alternative path, because in order for any dream to come true, it is absolutely imperative that they put their energy and their effort to it. Not to mean that the dream may not change in the future, but that's okay. At least they're putting their energy towards an outcome, not just moving from one thing to another, such as an attention deficit would create. The third rule for helping your children work with dreams is to teach them the ideal of perseverance. Abraham Lincoln failed in almost every venture he had ever undertook until he became the president of the United States. And he didn't have a backup plan. He kept moving forward. He kept trying. He kept aspiring. He kept pushing forward despite every single failure that had happened. And eventually he made the greatest of successes. And it took turning each one of those failures into a success. That was the story that underlaid his extreme success. The other part is, of course, turning failures into success. School is the only place where a failure is seen as a failure. What ends up happening when a child does not succeed at something, they automatically begin to build a track record of feeling like a failure. Well, even if a child has a 59%, they scored 59 out of 100 right. It doesn't mean that they passed in a traditional school setting, but it does mean that they only have to work on 41 other problems. So they scored more right than they did wrong. And so part of it is to teach them how to turn those 59 right into the area of success that they could then learn from the 49 that they got wrong. And when dreams do not come true, this is the fear that all adults have for their children, and this is why we really begin to encourage them to have a plan B, which I encourage you to remove from your vocabulary. It's when the dreams do not come true that we feel that there's going to be a catastrophe. That oh my God, what are they gonna do now? They better have a college degree or something to fall back on. This is the grass is greener on that side versus the side of the hill that we're going to when we move towards our dream. The Buddha postulated that it's better to travel well than to arrive. And this is the theory that underlies motivating your children's dreams forward. We need to move them in a way that helps them to understand that they can move confidently towards the direction of their dreams. Even if those dreams do not come true, the fact that they've developed a working ethic around moving towards it is a far greater value than if they had never dreamed the dream in the first place and then they were told to split their focus into two directions, having a plan A, which is their dream, and a plan B, which is what's your alternative. I thank you all for joining me, and I look forward to the next installment of Practical Parenting. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment or feel free to message me, and we will talk soon. Until then, advance confidently in the direction of your dreams.